Before I present to you my new team, I would like to start by thanking the outgoing college. 5 years ago, no one could have imagined what Europe would go through, and I could not have imagined a team as dedicated and tireless to go through that with. So I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for their service to Europe, and I think I speak also in your name. Honourable members, when I stood here exactly 5 years ago asking for your confidence, I spoke of the events of 1989, about the generation that returned freedom and democracy to the people of Europe. The courage of everyday people, like those in Bratislava, in Timișoara, who stood up for their liberty. The leaders like Lech Walesa and Václav Havel, who inspired entire countries and reunited an entire continent. I think back of the power in those images of 2 million people holding hands across the Baltics, or those tasting freedom for the first time on the border between Hungary and Austria. So it was with great emotion that I witnessed the moving events in Prague just 10 days ago. Not just the people honouring and celebrating 35 years since the Velvet Revolution, but also those mourners who gathered across town outside the Hlavka student dormitory, a place which symbolizes what happened on that exact same day 85 years ago, the day Nazi troops murdered students, closed universities, and curbed civil liberties. I start with this because these stories incarnate Europe's eternal struggle and sacrifice for freedom and democracy. Because fighting for freedom connects us as Europeans, our past and our present, our nations and our generations. And for me, this is the raison d'être of our union, and it remains the driving force more than ever today. This is the Europe I love, and this is the Europe my Commission will always be devoted to. Because I believe that our generation of Europeans must once again fight for freedom and sovereignty, for the freedom that the people of Ukraine are heroically fighting for the freedom to shape our own future in a confrontational and unstable world. But this freedom is not just an abstract word. It is about Europeans knowing that their families will be safe, their country protected, that they will be able to afford to buy food and heat their homes with decent wages and fair prices, that they will be able to seize opportunities, and that they feel in control of the change and the speed of change happening in societies. Our fight for freedom may look different to generations past, but the stakes are just as high. And, honourable members, these freedoms will not come for free. It will mean making difficult choices. It will mean massive investments in our security and our prosperity. And above all, it will mean staying united and true to our values, finding ways to work with each other and overcoming fragmentation. This is what I and all 26 women and men with me will strive for every single day. And we are ready to get to work immediately. Honourable members, you have scrutinized every member of this college in the last week. You have tested their fitness for the jobs they will serve. I know this was not easy. But overcoming divisions and forging compromises is the hallmark of a vivid democracy. And my message today is we want to work with you in that spirit. We will be guided by the political guidelines this House voted on and by the mission letters in which I will address concerns that you have raised in the hearings. And as I said before the vote in July, we will work with all democratic, pro-European forces in this House. And as I've done in my first mandate, I will always work from the centre, because we all want the best for Europeans, and we all want the best for Europe, and it is time to come together. And honourable members, this unity will be all the more important in today's contested world. A world in which every weakness is weaponized, every division pounced upon, every dependency exploited. Our freedom and sovereignty depend more than ever on our economic strength. Our security depends on our ability to compete, to innovate, and to produce. And our social model depends on a growing economy while facing demographic change. And this is why I have asked Mario Draghi to chart the way forward. And his diagnosis was stark, and his roadmap for action equally ambitious. Many of his proposals were taken up in our mission letters. Leaders endorsed this work in the European Council earlier this month. And I have listened very carefully to the hearings. I've heard your repeated calls to deliver the substantial change he's putting forward, with speed, with ambition. So, I can announce that the first major initiative of the new Commission will be a competitiveness compass. This competitiveness compass will be the frame for our work for the rest of the term. The compass will be built on 3 pillars from the Draghi report. First, closing the innovation gap with the United States and China. Second, a joint plan for decarbonization and competitiveness. And third, increasing security and reducing dependencies. The first pillar is closing the innovation gap. And let me start with good news. Europe's global share of patent application is on par with the United States and China. But, and now comes the but, only 1/3 of these are commercially exploited. We are roughly as good as the United States at creating startups, but when it comes to scale-ups, we're doing much worse than our competitors. So we have to close this innovation gap. So we will put research and innovation, science and technology at the heart of our economy. We will invest more, we will focus better, and we will ensure that our small companies, our startups and scale-ups can thrive in Europe. We know what needs to be done. We all know that a startup from California can expand and raise money all across the United States. But a startup in Europe has to deal with 27 different national barriers. We need to make it easier to grow in Europe. And for this, and for many more reasons, the first ever Commissioner for Startup, Research and Innovation will be Ekaterina Zaharyeva. Her leadership and experience will be invaluable to get more breakthrough tech from the lab to the market. And this is particularly important when it comes to digital tech. For us to be competitive, Europe must be home to the next wave of frontier technologies. And I can think of no better person to lead on this as Executive Vice President than Henna Virkkunen. You know her well. She will leave no stone unturned to ensure Europe can use digital technologies to boost its prosperity, to unleash innovation, and to help keep people safer. And she's the right person to ensure that Europe's tech sovereignty is built right here in Europe. Honourable members, the second pillar is the joint plan for decarbonisation and competitiveness. Almost 5 years ago, we launched the European Green Deal, our growth strategy, and our roadmap to net zero. The reasons which pushed us to be so ambitious then are even more pronounced today. So I want to be clear. We must and we will stay the course on the goals of the European Green Deal. But if we want to be successful in this transition, we must be more agile and better accompany people and business along the way. And we need to play on our traditional strength, our industries, our SMEs, our innovators, our workers. And this is why we will put forward the Clean Industrial Deal within the first 100 days of this mandate. This will involve the entire college, and we will have a team working hand in hand to coordinate our proposal. We will have Teresa Ribera, our first Executive Vice President for a clean, just and competitive transition. She's well equipped to ensure that we have a modern competition policy to support our ambitions. She's a true and devoted European, and together we will always work for the European interest. We will have Stéphane Séjourné. You know him well in this Parliament. You know him well in this Parliament. He will work tirelessly as Executive Vice President to bring the industry and internal market dimension together. And we will have Wopke Hoekstra. Wopke was our key coordinator, key negotiator at COP28 and 29, and he's already leading the road to net zero and clean growth. Together, they will ensure that we tackle the biggest challenges facing our companies. And we know that the most prominent of these is high energy prices. We have done a lot to respond to Russia's blackmail and to the high inflation that followed. But the price of energy is structurally still too high and has to go down. And that is what Dan Jorgensen will be working on, building on his previous experience in. He will work on bringing down costs for households and companies, to invest in clean energy, and to replace Russian LNG imports. It is high time to make that happen, and I know this House will support us in this. Honourable members, each industry has different needs, and each sector will have its own individual path to be clean and competitive. And this is why I am delighted that to help make that happen, Apostolos Tzitzikostas will be in charge of transport and tourism. His vast experience of European regions will be invaluable to develop connectivity. To support this work, I have decided to convene a strategic dialogue on the future of the car industry in Europe. This dialogue and its follow-up will be under my leadership. We will bring together all stakeholders around the table to listen to each other and to design solutions together as this industry goes through a deep and very disruptive transition. Europe's car industry is a European pride. Millions of jobs depend on it. And together we have to make sure that the future of cars will continue to be made in Europe. Honourable members, the third and the last pillar is reinforcing our economic security. We know that over-dependencies can quickly turn into vulnerabilities. And this is why stable and secure supply chains are so vital. Critical raw materials are the most obvious example. The demand for critical raw materials for the clean transition has already doubled during the last mandate, and it could triple during this mandate. So we need free and fair trade to diversify our suppliers. And there is no one better suited to do this than Maroš Šefčovič. He will deliver more partnerships for trade and investment and also to protect our economic security against the greatest risks to our strategic interests and sovereignty. And we must go further. President Niinistö's report on preparedness called for a systematic review of all our dependencies. To increase our resilience, he has laid out a whole-of-government and a whole-of-society approach. And this is why I have asked Hadja Labib to work on crisis response and preparedness. Her work will be supported by HERA. Oliver Vaheli will lead our work on biotechnologies, and his first priority will be the Critical Medicines Act. And Jessica Roswell will work on developing a competitive circular economy. This is crucial to give us more independence. Honourable members, we've paid the price for putting our future in the hands of a single supplier, and we will not make the same mistake again. European sovereignty is not for sale. Honourable members, war, conflict and human suffering continue unabated in our neighbourhood, from Ukraine to the Middle East to parts of Africa. Europe must play a stronger role in all of these areas. We have a duty to help that destruction and loss come to an end. And strengthen our security is all the more important in a world as contested and fragile as it is today. A world in which I believe Europe is needed more than ever. Just think of multilateralism and partnerships, sustainable development and humanitarian aid, security and human rights. They are more important than ever, and they will continue to be the linchpin of our external action. And this will need a lot of work and tireless leadership. I know we can count on Kaja Kallas as our High Representative and Vice President. She's the right person at the right time for Europe's diplomacy and interest in the world. To work on sustainable development, international partnerships, and to work on investments via Global Gateway, I have chosen Joseph Sikela. He will bring his business-like mentality and his experience to the table to develop the truly strategic approach that we need. And we will need a special focus on the regions with which we are bound to by history and by geography, starting with our southern neighbourhood. I am delighted that Dubravka Šuica will be our first ever Commissioner for the Mediterranean. We share the same shores, the same challenges and the same opportunities, and we know that we share the same destiny. Honourable members, these partnerships will gain importance in today's ever more dangerous world. War is raging at Europe's borders, and we must be ready for what lies ahead, working hand in hand with NATO. Just one figure. Russia is spending up to 9% of its GDP for defence. Europe is spending on average 1.9%. There is something wrong in this equation. Our defence spending must increase. We need a single market for defence. We need to strengthen the defence industrial base. We need to improve our military mobility. And we need common European projects on defence. And this is why Andrius Kubilius will be the first European Commissioner for Defence. We have no time to waste, and we must be as ambitious as the threats are serious. So we will come forward with a white paper on the future of European defence in the first 100 days of this mandate. I can assure you that Europe's security will always be this Commission's priority. Honourable members, this fight for freedom does not just apply to our 27 member states. The dream of Europe extends to the Western Balkans, to Ukraine, to Moldova and beyond. We've seen the bravery of the people of Ukraine in pursuing their European journey. We've seen the resilience of the people of Moldova to stick to their European future. I have seen and we have seen the commitment of the Western Balkans to reform, to grow and to get ready to join the European Union. And at the same time, we've seen how Russia will stop at nothing to prevent them from having a European future. But, honourable members, Europe's commitment to these countries will always be stronger. And let there be no doubt, we want Ukraine as part of our European Union. So we will stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes. We will get ready with the reforms that we need on our side. And we will support these countries every step of the way on their merits-based process until they are ready to join our union. Marta Kos, with her vast experience, is the right person for this job. The vision of a continent united by democracy, the rule of law, and respect for fundamental freedoms will always drive our work, because the people of these countries deserve a future of peace, progress and prosperity, and we will make sure that that future can be in Europe. Honourable members, these are the three pillars of our competitiveness compass: innovation, decarbonisation and security. They will all require a new approach to coordinating our policies. And they will all need a major boost of investment, of simplification and of skills. First, on the question of investment, of financing. This will have to be an investment commission. Of course, public investment will be crucial. We have all seen what the budget can deliver for Europeans, whether for our citizens, our businesses, our researchers, our farmers, our communities and our regions. But our budget is often too complex, funding the same thing in different programmes and in different ways. And we must be more focused on investing in our priorities. And this is why I have put Piotr Serafin in charge of shaping our next MFF. He's a skilled negotiator. He will work with the Parliament and the Council to deliver a simpler, more focused and more responsive budget. And he will work to ensure that Europe has the means to deliver on its ambitions. But public budgets can only go so far. We urgently need more private investment. Let me give you 3 figures. Business expenditure for research and development in Europe accounts for about 1.3% of GDP. 1.3. That is compared to 1.9% in China and 2.4% in the United States. Business expenditure. So this private capital gap is the main reason we lag behind on overall R&D spending and thus on innovation. And this is why we have proposed a European Savings and Investment Union, a task I have entrusted to Maria Luis Albuquerque. She will help ensure that European companies can find the capital they need here in Europe. And with her experience, I know Maria Luis is the right person for this job. Honourable members, for Europe to catch up, we will also need to make things easier for our companies. They are telling us that the regulatory burden weighs heavily on them. Too much reporting, too many overlaps, too complex, too costly to comply with. We need to streamline our rules to reduce the burden on businesses, and we need to give legal certainty about what we expect from them. And this is why I have asked one of our most experienced commissioners, Valdis Dombrovskis, to take the lead on simplification and implementation. Oh, merci. He will also be responsible for boosting Europe's economy and productivity. I can announce that one of our first steps in the new mandate will be a new omnibus legislation. We will look at different sectors and assess the European legislation. Our single market has always been the greatest engine for growth. And this was the message delivered by Enrico Letta in his report. And the greatest strength of our single market is that it replaces a myriad of national standards and customs with a single set of rules. So we need to get back to what the single market does best and make business easier. That's our task. Honourable members, the foundation of our economy is people. Their hard work, their talents, their skills. Competitiveness today is less about the cost of labour. That was 20 years ago. But it's much more about the knowledge of workers. And this is where we can outmatch our competitors. Here in Europe, companies find incredibly experienced workers and top-notch tech graduates. But we do not have enough of them. And this is a handbrake on our ability to compete. For this reason, I have appointed as Executive Vice President to lead our work on skills and preparedness, Roxana Minzato. She will ensure that we put people first, because productivity depends on good working conditions, on earning a fair wage, on a good work-life balance, on finding a nursery for your kids and good care for your elderly parents, and on having access to decent and affordable homes. Housing was one of the biggest issues for Europeans at the last election. It comes up time and again as the biggest concern for so many families. We need to tackle the housing crisis head-on, and this is why, for the first time, we will have a commissioner for housing, and I'm pleased that this commissioner will be Dan Jorgensen. This idea of putting people first has always been at the core of Europe's social market economy. We want strong social partners. The market can only function well if the social dialogue thrives too. That's our experience, that's our success. We need to make sure that we strengthen social rights in Europe. Roxana will lead on the ambitious social programme that we have laid out, starting by updating the European Pillar on Social Rights. I know how important this is for you here in this House. So I want to say that I have heard your call, and I'm happy to announce that social rights and quality jobs will be part of Roxana's title as Executive Vice President. Honourable members, this is how we will uphold the unique quality of life of Europeans across Europe. Whether in a coastal or fishing community, in a rural area or farming community, on an island or in an outermost region, in a big city or in one of Europe's unique and diverse regions, we must work to tackle the issues that regions face, from changing demographics to climate change, to the need of modern infrastructure. And this goes to the heart of the freedom I am talking about today. Because for many people, freedom is about choosing, choice, choosing where to live, work and study, choosing where to bring up their families, in other parts of Europe or perhaps where they grew up. This is what Letter called the right to stay. I want regions and communities to be in control of their own destiny and to help shape our policies. This is the task of cohesion and reforms that I have entrusted as Executive Vice President to Raffaele Fitto. This is a choice I have made, also because I know how vital it is to give regions the political importance they deserve. And this is notably the case in our rural and coastal communities. Farmers and fishers give us the highest quality food in the world. They bear the brunt of climate change more than anybody, and they deserve a level playing field and their hard work to be rewarded. We must ensure that our farmers and fishers have a fair and sufficient income, and that they have the right incentives to help protect our nature. This is why I have chosen Christoph Hansen as Commissioner for Agriculture and Food. He will bring the same skills to find compromises as he always did in this House. And he will lead the follow-up of the strategic dialogue for the future of agriculture in Europe. And I chose as Commissioners for Fisheries and Oceans, Kostas Kadis. His academic and professional expertise will help to deliver the right solutions. Both Christoph and Kostas will ensure that our farming and fishing communities can thrive, just as they have for generations gone by. Europe will always be at their side, and so will be this Commission. Honourable members, since the start of my first mandate, I promised an approach to migration that is both fair and firm, that guarantees sovereignty and solidarity, with stricter rules, but also guarantees for individual rights. And we will work on opening up legal pathways. This approach is now at the core of the Pact for Migration and Asylum. And Magnus Brunner is the right person to preserve this balance. And he will work every single day to secure our external border and bolster our internal security. Honourable members, the rights and freedoms we enjoy were gained slowly, generation after generation. We owe them to our freedom fighters who stood on a barricade and trade unionists on a picket line, to women who raised their voice, and reformers who patiently lobbied for change, to mass mobilizations and to lonely campaigners with the courage to challenge the status quo. It has taken decades to earn the freedoms we hold today. But we all know it can take a moment to lose them. And this is why we must always be vigilant. And I have tasked Michael McGrath to be a steadfast guardian of our values and our principles. And I've listened to our European Parliament and added consumer protection to his title. He will consolidate the tools for the rule of law we already have, and he will work to build new ones, including proposals on smart conditionality. And he will make sure that the rule of law and justice for all remains at the heart of the European project. And he will strengthen equal application of all rule of law instruments, our values, our foundation, and our common bond. And they will always be our future. Honourable members, this college is the right team for this moment in Europe's history. And I want to stress the word team. We will be a team with European citizens, listening and learning more from the daily realities people face. And we will also be a team with you and with the member states. We know that your confidence will need to be continuously earned, not just for today's vote, but for the whole 5 years. And this is why I have asked my commissioners to be more present in this plenary and in each of your committees, to engage more and to be more transparent. And we will work to keep strengthening our partnership with this House, starting with an ambitious reform of our framework agreement. You can count on me, and you can count on Maroš Šefčovič and all commissioners to deliver on that from day one. Together we can work on an ambitious reform agenda in general that Europe needs. I believe we need treaty change, where it can improve our union. And I want to work on that with this House. And this team that you are voting on today is truly European. It represents different nations and generations. We have former prime ministers and ministers, mayors and local officials. Some have been CEOs and others have worked for non-profit. Some have been journalists and business owners. Others are biologists and physicists by training. Some are from rural areas and farming stock, and others from the bright lights of our big cities. Some have lived through war, others through the transition to democracy. I am proud that this team is so diverse in so many ways. But we all know there is more work to do. As I promised you in July, I fought tooth and nail just to ensure we got to 11 women in this college, up from 5 when the first set of nominations came in. And yet it is still not even half, and it is certainly not enough. And we have so much achieved in the last mandate. We have tackled the gender pay gap. We have taken European action on violence against women. We did what people said was impossible by unblocking women on board. And I want to thank all of you here, women and men, in this House for the cross-party support. We will never stop fighting for equality. And this is why I'm so glad to have Hadja Labib as our Commissioner for Equality. She has broken so many glass ceilings herself. She will strengthen women's rights and ensure equality for all. Together, we will work every day to bring different parts of our society together. And I have chosen, last but certainly not least, Glenn Micallef, born in the year of the Berlin Wall, when the Berlin Wall fell, to be the bridge between generations. He'll support our young people and ensure solidarity between people of all ages. To conclude, honourable members, freedom and democracy need to be nourished and fought for every single day, so we can pass them on to the next generation, just as we have inherited them from those before us. Last week, Strasbourg marked a momentous anniversary. 80 years since the day Strasbourg was liberated, November 23rd, 1944. After 5 years of Nazi annexation, Strasbourg was finally free. It was a fresh start for the city, and it was hope for Europe. But what followed wasn't easy. Europeans had fought each other for so long. It took a generation of leaders with the courage to mend the wounds, to imagine a different future. And this is the spirit that has led our continent forward ever since. Time and again, we have had a choice. On the one hand, the course of division and decline. On the other hand, the very narrow path towards a more united Europe. Europe has always chosen strength in unity. So with honor, it is with honor and deep emotion that I stand here in Strasbourg, 80 years on, in this House of European democracy, at the heart of a free Europe, asking you for your trust in this team, asking you to choose a stronger and a more united Europe, asking you to choose a future of freedom for Europe. That path has never been the easiest one, but together we know we can do it. So, let's get to work. Long live Europe. Vive l'Europe, es lebe Europa.